Conversations of Elevation, the podcast with the Oddcast. It is a collection of three incredibly close individuals who are sisters and brothers from other mothers, but God brought us together for such a time as this. The topics that we're going to discuss, the movement behind the motivation is white hot. And we are here because these conversations will help impart into anyone who is a part of this or within earshot on a global scale to make a global impact. That is economically, educationally, spiritually, and fundamentally, because we are the bridge that connects one another to each other. There is no accident. There is no separation. We are one. And the sooner we realize that, the sooner we'll be able to eliminate problems on a global scale. So I'm just honored to be here, to be able to be a part of it. And I think that one of the things that's important in life is our laughter. The ability to laugh at yourself, the ability to laugh amongst others and with others. So let's get started.
Can you talk a little bit about how you three met?
Yes. So Tunisia is a phenomenal person. Not only is she a mother, but she runs the African Service Center in Aurora, Colorado. I met Tunisia at the African Leadership Group, ALG. I was taking a class, Public Speaking 101, and she was a part of the class. She was also one of the facilitators as she wears many hats. Professor Majama was teaching the class, and every week our bonds grew stronger. It's interesting because in the class, my first week when we would introduce each other, the students were from all over the continent. And there were very few of us that were of African American heritage, so we didn't have accents. The rest of the class came from Ivory Coast, the Ivory Coast, Mali, Burkina Faso, Tanzania, all over the continent of Africa. And each of them had a native tongue. Tunisia and I, despite the rest of the class sometimes thinking that they would like to be able to have mastered the English language, we made it very clear that it is us who is lacking in grammatics because we don't have a native language. Although English is a language, it is indeed a bastardized conglomeration of every other language on earth. So once our class understood that we were all on an even playing field, we became sisters and brothers. And the speeches that came out of that class to this day, I revisit some of them. You can find them online, our graduation speeches. I cannot tell you, us just having a conversation, you could put an apple in the middle of the table and ask the three of us to talk about it. And what you're going to get out of that apple is going to be something that you can plant that will grow for decades, just like those seeds. And we realized that it was no coincidence, not a chance, that we have been placed together for such a time as this. And now, some 2.5 years later, our sister Tunisia just got her BS in psychology. Professor has continued to hone his mastery in terms of his life coach skills, his certifications, being able to help us, help you, help us. And so it is time for us to have these conversations of elevation because it's not just about us. It's not about me. It's not about him. It's not about our sister Tunisia. It is about the global human connection that each of us share.
Can you talk a little bit about your editing of the book Faded to Win?
Wow. Fated to Win. The book is the first of many that will come out of this conglomeration, this mastermind group. That's how we started. Professor said to us one day that I have to have you all in my mastermind group. And it just started as, we would have an idea, we would bounce it off of each other, and he said, we're going to write books. And so Tunisia and myself, we're mothers, and we have all these hats that we wear, and it was like a juggling act, and we're like, okay, we've got to sit down and figure out a way to get this done. So Professor started writing, and he would give me tidbits, and my background is in writing. My first career was as a newspaper reporter. I graduated high school early with a full scholarship from the Rocky Mountain News. I knew I wanted to write from probably the first time I was able to write. And it's just something that is intrinsic to my being. So Professor would give me these excerpts, and I would be like, sir, you got to do this. You got to put this together. Like, it is time. And he would say, my sister, it is time for you. And I'm like, it's time for you. So we kind of made sure that that was something we would hold ourselves to. We made each other our accountability partners. And I kid you not, it was Thanksgiving. I had been offline from the world, disconnected, and just full impact with taking care of my daughter and my granddaughter. And he hit me up that week. I had nothing to do. It's very rare that I have a whole week with nothing to do. And he literally called me. He said, sister, I know you're busy. He said, but I need you to edit this book. He said, it's done. The stories are done. The stories are told. Because the stories are really our lives, his life, that he just so happened to put on paper. Because we all would wonder, where did you come from? Like when you meet, I didn't say if, when you meet Professor, be it at a lecture or on a stage, on a medium such as this, you're going to meet us. You're going to meet him. You will be in awe at the things that come out of him. I don't care who you may have studied under, what you think your own education and knowledge is. The way he puts things together to make them applicable to our everyday life, he made me a better person. And I am honored to be someone who was blessed to be under his tutelage. So he calls me this week and he says, my sister, it's done, but I cannot put this book out without you, going through it. And he says, and doing what you do. He always says that. He says, I just want you to do what you do. And so I said, you know what? Great. I said, I have time. And he was like, what? He always laughs because our timing is always kismet. Like the three of us is serendipity in motion. And I said, all right, well, it's time. So I literally shut the entire world out, and I didn't even sleep. I would read, write, research, reread, write, research for about 18 hours of every single day. I would sleep for 4 hours. I would piddle around for an hour. I couldn't stop reading. Like, it wasn't like, oh, I was determined, like, I'm going to sit down and I'm going to edit this. And like, I knew I had about 6 days to get things done. But it was like all of the things that I'd heard him talk about in class and teach about, they were right there in front of me on the pages of this book. It was incredible. And I couldn't stop. So in the midst of me reading and the visualization of the things and the stories I'd heard him tell, the subjects he taught about, the greats that influenced him, Bob Proctor, Jim Rohn, Napoleon Hill, Sun Tzu, me with my Asian studies, bringing that element into our class, and the combination of every student brought something phenomenally unique that we were able to combine. We're still family, all of us. If you've ever taken any of the classes through ALG, you immediately have a family. No matter what you look like, no matter what language you speak natively, you become family. So we're reading, I'm writing, I'm editing, I'm texting him, I'm calling him, I'm like, I'm on chapter 4. And I would say something about one of the lines he had written, and we would bounce that back and forth, and we would like tweak it a little bit. Okay, we're going to change this. And, one of my gifts I always tell people is God blessed me to be here to help you make your dreams come true. And that's how my consulting firm got started. And it is no different when it comes to words. I really am honored to have that as a gift. So I wrote and I read and I researched and I wrote. And there's like moments in the book where I was like, this could not have happened. I would call him. There's a section where he's talking about his sister and how he was sneaking to study, and she would, turn the lights off because he was supposed to be in bed, right? But he was working so hard as well, because one of the things in the book that struck me is how he paid no mind to the traditional gender roles in his village, but he kept in mind the teachings of the sheik that inspired him, his mentors, including the desires of his sister mom, what it meant for him to become who he is to his family. He understood that more than he cared about compliance with his curfew. So he would, by candlelight, sneak and be doing homework after having worked all day and gone to school and gone to get water, and just to read the steps it took this man to become and get to where he was in front of us in class. I was hooked. And, having been someone who reads and writes, I need a good story to impress me. And I mean, I was insatiably reading this, couldn't put it down. I called him and I said, okay, now, whoever your sister mom is, like, listen, I need to talk to her. Because when I say I was heated, like, how dare she take the plug off the wall? And, it was, I don't want to say too much about it because when you get to that part of the book, you're going to crack up thinking about this discussion here. But man, it was so good. And I know for a fact that when Professor wrote his accolades and his thank yous to people, she is extremely instrumental in him becoming who he is. And I thank her for that. So it was an honor to see and be able to hold in my hands something that the three of us had been discussing for about 3.5 years. Yeah.
Tune in. Tune in for
Yes.
Conversation of Elevation.
Tune in. Conversations of Elevation, the Oddcast with the podcast. And there is so much that's going to come out of this conglomeration. I told them this is the year of three, us three. I don't know what that means. The 3-strand cord is not easily broken. The Trinity, the 3 points on a triangle, the continuity of 3. I'm excited.